Constable Odo wants Quark to remove some bar stools from the bar. Cassidy Yates says that Captain Sisko is a good parent because he knows all the cliches by heart. And Jake Sisko is working on a crime novel, but he's hit a wall in his writing. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Jake Sisko himself, Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, everybody.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Deep Space Nine's Season 6, Episode 25, entitled The Sound of Her Voice, story by Pam Pietroforte, probably Pietroforte, teleplay by our good pal Ronald D. Moore, and directed by Weinrich Colby. This was June 10th. 1998. Where were you? How you doing, Cirroc?
Doing well. Pietroforte. I wonder if that means the force of Peter.
Feet. Or yeah. Because you know P-I-E-T sometimes or P-I-E-D sometimes mean feet. But yeah, let's just go with Peter instead. That's probably better. Foot strength. Well, no, I don't know. Foot strength. That means you're like this
is the first time we've seen Pam's name pop up in the storyline, so that's pretty.
I think so.
Shout out
to Pam. I would remember that difficulty. And oh wait, no, she also has a story by credit on statistical probabilities. How did we forget that? That was the one with the four geniuses that are in that room with the
with Bashir, right? The
exactly.
Hybrids.
Yeah.
Okay, so clearly kind of off the beat stories that are not typical. They're atypical type stories. The ones that Pam writes.
Yeah, and these are the only two of hers. So this is it. This is her swan song.
Some Twilight Zone-ish kind of feel. I'm sure she would be a great guest to interview and kind of ask about her influences. But I did like this episode. Sound of her voice definitely has that kind of old school feel for me as far as accomplishing so many different things, and it was such a very simple way to do it, but it accomplished so many things in a very low tech kind of way, right?
Mm-hmm. Also, before we get too deep into this, we want to make sure to give a very special thanks to our friend out in Austria. Don't say Germany, it's Austria. Robert Kaiser. Thank you, Robert. Special thanks to you. Hope you enjoy this one.
Yeah, Austria.
Yeah, that's the one. So Robert also goes to
Robert.
Yeah, we also see him at Star Trek conventions all the time. So we'll see you in Vegas, my friend. And sorry, what were you saying, Cirroc?
I was just saying how beautiful Vienna is. If anybody gets a chance to go out there, gorgeous.
All right. I almost went to Vienna. I was backpacking around Europe, did Amsterdam, London, Brussels, Prague, and I was going to go to Vienna, but whoops-a-daisy, started running out of money, so I had to kind of U-turn it and go to France. I'm like, I can chill over here. I got family, so that was my next, Budapest and Vienna. Never got to see it though, but I feel like I'm really missed out there.
I feel the same about Budapest because when I was in Vienna, I was going to go shoot over to Budapest. Everybody said how beautiful it was, and I didn't do it. And I kind of regret because you're so close, and it's so close from there.
Yeah,
it's just a train ride away. So you're like, I could do this.
Everything feels close when you're in Europe. You're like, you mean it's just this other historic city is just right over there? Just
right.
You just hop on a train for like 17 euros or whatever it is,
Yeah.
You're like, this is good living.
And comfortable trains, like where you can like literally just sleep, like stretch out your legs. Yeah. Comfortable plush seats. I mean, like a good train ride. So shout out to the Europeans out there that are doing their transportation and
living right.
They have a lot to see. Yeah, living right, and they have a lot to see. A lot of beautiful cities to take in. So
One last thing
one day I'll go back
on those trains is that not only is it a pleasant experience to just stretch your legs out and whatever, it's never crowded, but also just to see the scenery and the countryside.
Yeah.
You get to, you feel like you're actually seeing the world rather than just visiting a big city, you know, because everybody, when they travel around, they're just seeing big cities, you know, but when you're on the train, you feel like you're seeing the world. But anyway, don't want to take too much time on that, but it's amazing.
No, I have to, I mean, that's 100% right. I remember one time on the train in Switzerland, and as we're passing through the villages and the countryside, there was one piece of graffiti. I don't remember seeing much graffiti, but there was one mural that we passed by, and it was a Tupac mural in Switzerland. I couldn't believe that. I was thinking, I was like, is that a Tupac?
Is that an accident?
So, yeah. So you never know what you'll see on those rides, and they're definitely a fun adventure. Mm-hmm. And I kind of envy the fact that she did the backpack thing, because that's the kind of adventurous spirit that, you know, it takes to even be on Star Trek, essentially, to be a part of any crew, right?
Nice segue. Here we go.
Gotta have that backpack.
Dude, traveling by yourself is pretty cool. I didn't realize, but anyway, we can get all into that other times possibly, but just be careful about Amsterdam. That's where your money goes. You think you're good. You stop in Amsterdam, and it's just, oh, my money left me somehow. I don't know what happened there. Anyway.
Okay.
One dude actually broke into my bag though, and like couldn't find any money because I had it hidden in a pretty good place. And so the punk stole my pants. I saw my bag was like had been ripped open. And I was like, this guy couldn't find anything. So he stole my jeans. He's like, well, whatever. American jeans are probably worse. Anyway, that's kind of
well, he heard you were a smarty pants, so he wanted to take that away from you.
Yeah, he wanted intelligence by osmosis by rubbing his face on my pants. I'm not sure.
Oh, well, how far we've strayed from the sound of her voice. Bring us back. Bring us back.
Reel it back in. So basically, the first thing that jumps out at me with this episode is the end. I think it's this twist that you're absolutely not expecting. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're watching this, there's no doubt in your mind they're going to save that lady, right? Maybe there is doubt.
No, there was some doubt in my mind, actually. There was some doubt, and there was doubt for me even who the lady was, because there was part of me thinking, part of me was thinking that the first thought I had was, this is Jennifer Sisko. I don't know why. It's been a while. It's been a long time, but I was thinking, is this Jennifer Sisko kind of, you know, reaching out to him from the afterlife type stuff? And
you just want the drama. You saw Cassidy on the ship, and you're like, give me some drama. Give me some drama.
Yes, I thought that's exactly what, and it started to be confirmed when, as the story was going on, this voice was saying, "Oh, you don't need her. Get her off the ship. She's no good to you."
Yes. Just drop her off on an asteroid somewhere. Trust me, you'll be happier.
Yeah. Was that woman I was talking to earlier? Yeah, definitely get rid of her. So I was thinking, oh, this is a really creative way to kind of bring Cassidy back from the dead. And I thought that's where it would lead to. Something like that would touch it, you know, Sisko's heart. He'd probably see her, find her, and it'd be just like some kind of not really her, but her.
You mean bring Jennifer back from the dead then, right?
Right.
I thought you I thought you meant bring Cassidy back because we haven't seen her in a while, but you're talking specifically.
Well, it's funny because I wrote Cassidy is back. So that was one part that obviously we haven't seen her for a while. And it looked like
me too.
Sisko wasn't that interested in her stories, right? Like he was over there, like basically, whatever. She's like, you know, and then I did this, and I was like, and then, you know, and he's like, all right. And it felt
was really, and he was wearing it on his sleeve too. He wasn't hiding it very well. He's like, let's go. Yeah, tell me.
Yeah,
no, I care, honey. I care.
Yeah, really. Exactly. That was the vibe. And then Bashir walks in and he doesn't say much. She's like, he doesn't say much. He's like, yeah, I wish you wouldn't say much. It was kind
of... Seriously, I was half expecting for Worf to come in and say, Captain, I recommend prune juice. You're like, okay.
So yeah, it looked like he was kind of like not interested a lot. And kind of almost over it in some kind of a way, like I'm over this. So I felt tough. That,
yeah. That's what's tough with these bottle episodes is that they have to tell the story in 43 minutes or 45 minutes, and so sometimes you have to just go along with it at the beginning. Like when they go, like when Sisko says, oh yeah, I like him better this way, about Bashir. And when Bashir's kind of, grumpy and moody, and you're like, grumpy, I don't remember Bashir being grumpy and moody. I don't remember any of this. I don't remember Sisko. Like, you kind of have to just go with it because that's what they need for this particular story, even though the episodes leading up to this, you're like, that doesn't necessarily track with how I remember them being. They're friendly. They're going and partying together. They're having fun. And then suddenly they don't get along. And you're like, that's not how I remember them. But it's almost like they want you to just kind of think of this as as a self-contained story and try not to bring any of the baggage of previous episodes into it, because it creates this arc in which at the end, it reminds them to cherish each other and be nice to each other and remind each other what they mean to them and things like that. So it makes for a better story that way, even if it didn't really track at the beginning, right?
No, it did not track. And I felt myself saying, for one, I was like, every time I remember Cassidy coming on the ship, Sisko being like really happy and excited.
Smitten,
smitten, and his girl is back, and where have you been all this time? Especially when you have a kind of a long distance relationship, quote unquote, which is what they kind of have, because she goes off and does her thing for a while and then comes back. So there's obviously time when you're not together, you miss not seeing somebody. So when somebody does come back, you're not like, it's not like normal and average. It's not like, this is just another one of 1,000 days that we've spent together going to get breakfast and this and that. This is like, I haven't seen you in 3 months, 6 months. I don't know whatever the term is, the length is, but it's like there's a little level of excitement there normally. So when I saw that he was kind of like not into it and his energy level was super low, I'm thinking, what did I miss between the last time I saw her and now? Right?
There was an episode 24.5 in there where, I wonder if it could be explained if maybe they were on the Defiant for a really long time. I wonder if maybe if they had said, or maybe they did say it and I missed it, but maybe they said, we've been on a mission for 2 months, in which case, okay, you could see that they're tired, they're grumpy. Or if this episode was just meant to be earlier in this season where it would have worked when they're constantly battling with the Dominion or something like that. But either way, that was a little, you kind of have to just go with it sometimes and just try not to think about it too much.
It was the Bashir thing too, because Bashir seemed way out of character. He was like really like there was an underlying type of almost depression that was there, right? Yeah. It felt like something's deeply bothering him. And then, but when you think back, you're like, when was the last time I saw him? He looked like he was, everything was perfectly fine. He was, they were handling something and doing something, but, he was wearing that red. The last time I saw him, he was wearing all red.
Maybe that depressed him, kind of depressed me a little bit.
The Bajoran medical suit.
Yeah.
But he didn't seem kind of bothered or anything. Now it looked like he was just like in this funk and all of this other stuff. The O'Brien stuff made sense to me because we just came off of him in the Molly episode.
And he's always a little crotchety,
He's also, so that's okay. That makes sense.
They're like, what's wrong, Chief O'Brien? The wife and kids are back. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then they're back for like one day, and already I lose my daughter. Then she comes back. Then I start thinking, do I even want her back? I don't know. Who knows anymore? That works with O'Brien.
It works with O'Brien. So I totally bought it on O'Brien's side, So the other part, so that's why I thought they were setting me up for the Jennifer Sisko thing. I was like, okay, this is Sisko, Cassidy doesn't seem right. I think they're trying to get rid of her or make her stand up and fight for him. Right. So I thought this is a moment in which it's kind of like, hey, I know you've been talking to that girl. I checked your phone and, or it's one of those kind of, I thought this was going to be the source of drama between Cassidy and Sisko. Like, you're up all night talking to this girl and I just got back and da-da-da-da. And then if it's Jennifer Sisko or a lookalike or somebody who's, I don't know, alternate, whatever, however they do it, then it would even be more like you like her because you've been talking all night to her. She physically looks like the woman that you already have been married to, right?
Yeah.
So basically I'm out kind of a thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been interesting. I don't know how they would have written that in, like explain it, but they can explain anything away, whatever. It's mirror universe, Jennifer Sisko or whatever they want to do.
Right.
But that would have been fun. It would have been fun to see, Captain Sisko squirm a bit and be like, oh, hey. And she's like, aren't you happy to see me? Well, boy, oh boy. Yeah, boy. I mean, hey, Cassidy, what are you doing? I thought I told you to stay on the ship, Cassidy. Like, why does your voice go up 2 octaves when you're nervous? Well, I'm not nervous.
I'm not nervous.
Yeah, it would have been fun.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be one of those kind of things where you just got, you have to have a difficult conversation with your woman. So I thought that was going to be the case, but they did throw me for a few loops there. And the thing I think, well, we could get into the second half because I do agree with you. The ending makes the whole thing work, right? It makes it a Twilight Zone type of episode. It makes it one of those episodes where it takes it from just being a normal rescue to an interesting kind of provocative, make you think type of episode where you're like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Just the idea of it is interesting, right? Talking to somebody.
And this feels like, and this is just a total guess on my part, it feels like the idea was pitched that there's a lady or a captain that, they're trying to save and they're just hearing the voice and that element, right? And, they want to go find her and they want to go save her. And it feels like the actual writer's room, and Ronald D. Moore and Ira and them said, what about if when they find her, she's long since deceased? Like they created the twist. It feels like somebody that would pitch the story would just pitch, the main chunk of this. And I wouldn't be surprised if they created the twist at the end, which is that when they find her, she's already dead, because it felt like the natural inclination. What they normally do in Star Trek is that they get in just in time. They save the lady. They actually get to meet her and she says, thank you. And they say, no, thank you. That kind of thing. Right. And then we're happy because like we've been watching this episode for an hour. We don't realize it, but we actually need to see this one. We need to meet her too, because we've just been hearing her voice and her voice and her voice forever. We need to match the face to the voice and we never get that. And that feels like more sophisticated writing that the room would come up with than somebody that's naturally pitching. I could be wrong, but that's just my impression. And it's a classic case of the writers giving us what we need rather than what we want. We think we want to see that lady. We think we want to finally get the mystery solved or that, the closure. We think we need that and that's what we want, but really they don't give us what we think we want. And it creates a more compelling story at the end there.
I think so. And what makes it compelling to me is the fact that you have all of these conversations that are based around private thoughts. These are it's a way they use this as a springboard to get into very personal private thoughts in each one of the crew members or most of the crew. And so you get to see stuff or have these conversations where you feel like you have confidentiality, right? It's like, okay, me and this random person I've never met before. So it's like almost going into confession, and you don't see, the priest behind, and you don't see them. You just make your confession and then you walk away. And it's kind of that anonymity that allows you to feel free to reveal personal thoughts or
exactly
what you're going to. Yeah.
I think we all kind of get that impression of like, it's easier to convey your feelings to somebody through an email or through a text or something rather than face to face. And sometimes it's easier to convey your feelings to a complete stranger, like you're saying. Like, there's just this weird thing that's how humans are. Apparently, that's also how genetically engineered humans are. We don't know about Trills or Klingons because they didn't seem to, really go deep into confiding in her. But yeah, I think that's what it is. It's like when there's just somebody there that just wants to talk with you, that you're not seeing face to face, that you don't know for 6 hours or 4 hours, eventually you're just going to start kind of spilling your guts. And, it's a really interesting idea. I'm glad they did this episode.
Love the episode. And there's very specific moments that I love that we can get into, but, I did love a lot of the episode, and it felt to me like one of those feel-good episodes where I feel the kind of bond in the cast. Because I think one of the main big stories, the B story, I guess, is the Quark Odo, and that's a whole nother
that's true,
dive to me into friendship and the bond that they have together as a crew.
And it was really cool that Jake Sisko is kind of the third member of that storyline. It's almost like he's got his own storyline with Quark, but it was an interesting angle for your character because usually it's like him and Nog or him and his dad, whereas he had a different perspective or a different role in this episode of the guy that's going like, what's this? Well, what's that? Well, how do you work this? And, he's kind of taken on a different role. We saw a little bit of it when the Dominion had taken over the station. He did a little bit of that with like Wei Yun and whomever, but it was really cool to see him in this new kind of role for the story, Actually, we'll talk all about that. We're going to take our break right now. That's on that. I know. So, I'm like, what am I doing? I'm opening this can of worms like 10 seconds before we got to go to a break. But we'll be right back on the 7th rule, everybody. So don't touch that dial. Remember when people used to say, don't touch that dial? Anyway,
that's when we had dials.
Yeah, I know. Don't touch anything. We'll be right back on the 7th rule. Hey, everybody. Looks like you did not touch that dial. Thank you for that. We're back on the 7th rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk. We are doing The Sound of Her Voice, Deep Space Nine, Season 6, Episode 25. Here are the trivioids. We're going to get right back into it right after this break. So don't touch that dial. Odo wants Quark to remove some bar stools from the bar. Cassidy Yates is now convoy liaison officer to the Federation. Cassidy Yates says Captain Sisko is a good parent because he knows all of the cliches by heart. Captain Sisko likes Bashir better when he's quiet. Who doesn't? A signal is coming to Deep Space Nine from somewhere in the Rutharian sector. Only Quark would consider bar stools a form of artistic expression, says Odo. Saturday is the 1-month anniversary of Odo and Kira's first date, but Sunday is the anniversary of their first kiss. Jake Sisko is working on a crime novel, but he's hit a wall in his writing. Okay. That's that there. So,
yeah.
B-story.
You were talking about the Quark Jake kind of relationship in this, and there were moments there that I really enjoyed with Armin and I. And the one moment that I enjoyed the most was the excitement that Quark showed when he says, all the money I'm gonna make, and he starts to get really excited.
Yes,
and he almost grabs
shakes
Jake
you, and you get this nice smile. Yes, I loved it.
Yes, that little moment, that was like a connection there that I felt between Jake and Quark. Like you could see Quark is like really celebrating and opening himself up to Jake in that moment, just by showing him how excited he was to be to get away with this and make all this money. So I enjoyed that one brief moment, but I thought it showed a huge growth just in that scene between the Jake Quark kind of relationship, whatever that is.
Yeah, I feel like the only times we've seen those kind of real genuine moments with Jake and another character where it's like there's just like this connection is obviously with his dad when Captain Sisko either kisses your character on the head or when he jostles him a little bit or does something like that, also obviously with Nog, when Nog makes a joke, but sometimes he gives like a little shove or and then there's like this moment. And this was the other time where you felt like almost like a physical dynamic between them, like a friendship. There's also honorable mention goes to Joseph Sisko when he was having you peel the potatoes. It was kind of in a different direction, but there was like also that connection there, but I really like those moments.
I do too. And you rarely see Quark sharing his excitement. It's always a hidden thing, right? He's always trying to mask whatever his true feelings are and not give away his hand. And this is the one opportunity in which I think he allowed Jake inside of his scheming, and I don't know what it was that appealed to the idea, because he told Jake, you can't write about it. You can't say anything. Because Jake offers, he's like, yeah, I'll make you the lead in my story, right? He's like, that's the dangle of the carrot.
Appeal to ego, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I can make you famous with this. And I thought that would be the thing that would say, okay, Quark is like, all right, fine. But that didn't really do it either. He did it for other reasons, basically just to show how good he is, almost in a bragging way about how good he is at manipulation and chicanery.
By the way, nice use of the term chicanery. The first time I heard the word chicanery was in a Marilyn Manson song when I was a teenager. I was like, what's chicanery? I looked up, I was like, oh, that's a fun word. But I will say, I submit, and this is in my own kind of personal headcanon, but I think it's believable. I think that Quark has a soft spot for Jake Sisko. He has a soft spot for very few people. He has a soft spot for Odo. He has a soft spot for Nog, although it's a very mixed emotions kind of soft spot, and for Rom, of course.
It's a tough love type of soft spot.
I think he's got a very soft spot for Jake Sisko because he always looked at, Jake and Nog as the kids that he kind of watches, kind of scolds sometimes. The difference is with Nog is he had to kind of go a little harder on Nog because Nog wasn't being a proper Ferengian, because Nog is part of his family and this and that. Whereas Jake, he could just enjoy him for being a kid. He doesn't have to worry about raising him or turning him into a good Ferengi. So I think he definitely has a very powerful soft spot for Jake Sisko and likes him. We hardly ever see it, but I think it's there.
Yeah, I think it's there, but I wouldn't also discount the fact that he's really calculative and knows that having Jake as an ally is a trump card that he can always use for the captain when he, it's like an advocate that he'll always be able to kind of rely on or call upon. So there is some part of this. You can never discount a Ferengi for not having some kind of rule of acquisition type of
always calculated. Yep.
calculation behind his motivation. So yes, I believe there is a genuine soft spot there, but I also believe that it's also for the benefit of future manipulation when it comes to
and he did mention a rule of acquisition. No good deed ever goes unpunished. As everybody knows, rule of acquisition number 285 sounds very similar to what we just say here on planet Earth. Okay. That one's fine. All it's right. Okay to have two of the same, for
it people. Works. It works. Mm-hmm. But you know what? What I was thinking when I was watching this episode, I was thinking this episode is a NAM, the whole episode.
That's so funny. I was literally just typing that in my notes to make sure to say that. I was, did you see? I was just, that's literally what I was typing. Yeah. That this is the greatest NAM in the history of Star Trek, right? The whole episode is a NAM.
The whole episode. I was like, this is the greatest thing. I had to write it down. I was like,
however, we do get to see the character, but she's dead, but she is on screen. So I don't know, but that's what I put. I put like, this is like 50 NAMs practically.
I was like, they basically turned an entire NAM into an episode, and that's pretty damn clever too. Mm-hmm. What were you? I kept thinking this. What was the name of this person? Lisa
Cusack.
John Lisa Cusack.
Exactly. Also, everybody at home, if it's your first time watching, a NAM is a non-appearance mention. We like to keep track of the people, the characters that get mentioned in an episode or discussed when they don't actually appear on the show, so that they still get credit, because on, say, like IMDb or whatever, you only see the episodes that their face was actually in it, but you don't see any credit for when they were just mentioned or discussed, but their story still lives on. Like, even if whether Jake Sisko is writing a novel on screen or whether Captain Sisko is just saying, my son Jake is writing a novel, either way, you're still getting that piece of story. So we want to always make sure to take note when someone is mentioned.
And speaking of that, who is in the lead of the NAMs? Because I know you keep a running NAM.
The lead
non-appearance mention tab.
Right is Keiko O'Brien, especially for the last season or two, because she was never on screen, but O'Brien kept saying, oh, Keiko's with the kids on Bejor, or oh, Keiko doesn't like it when I do that, or Keiko's gonna be pissed when I bring home a cat, or whatever it is. But she's definitely pulled away from the pack in the last 2 weeks. Second place is Molly with, oh man, this is the problem. Molly with 13.5, because I think we had a long discussion, and so we gave her a half. So she's at 13.5. And then third place is a tie between Nog at 13, right behind her. And, actually, no. Second place, as of this episode, passing both Nog and Molly at 14, is Shakar. Shakar has 14 because he got another NAM today.
In this?
Yes,
no way.
He was. When
I remember it.
When Quark was talking to Jake, I believe, about, Odo was always moping around when Kira was still seeing Shakar.
Oh.
And so this guy, it's crazy. He has 14 non-appearance mentions, but only 3 actual appearances on the show. That's why everybody's so shocked when you tell them he was only in 3 episodes. They're like, what are you talking about? He was in like a dozen. No, he was just talked about. But anyway, so that's the fun nerd stuff that we go over.
His ratio of actual episodes
through the roof
is killer.
Through the roof.
If he knew that would happen, he should have wrote that into his contract. Look, I get paid if you mention me.
Yeah, I get X amount of dollars per episode or per day, but I get X amount of dollars anytime I'm mentioned too. And they're like, yeah, sure, give him a couple $100. Who cares? And they didn't really, boy, man, we just got to stop mentioning this guy. He's putting his kids through college.
Yeah, they keep bringing him up, man. That's crazy because he's only been in 3 episodes.
Nuts.
Yeah. The other thing I thought about was Siri. I thought of Siri. You know how it's that voice that's there that you could talk to, Siri this or whatever, or Alexa or whatever these different. I thought of that. I was like, well, this is kind of like the introduction to that idea. It's like talking to somebody, they're not there.
Totally.
So I did think of that as well.
What was it? I think somebody did something where they got Siri and Alexa to talk to themselves. And once you get them both started, they just go back and forth and like have a full conversation because their whole job is to just keep the conversation going, kind of, And that's what this lady was doing. You're right. Lisa, she's the future Siri, where she's actually like this, basically a real person as far as and she's making jokes and she's like, oh my God, I'm dying. I ate her because you weren't listening,
Yeah, that was another favorite moment that I had, that little moment, that gag moment, because it did get Bashir's attention, and it did, it was just like, what the hell's going on? So I like that moment. I thought it was very clever for them to write that in, for Ron Moore to put that little twist in there, because it makes you see that you buy into her humanity. You feel the compassion for her. You feel that she's like, knows that she's aware you're not paying attention. So like, I'm not going to waste my time if you're not tuning in. So
totally.
It was totally a good moment for me. I was also thinking of The Voice. When I was hearing this
That's a great show. Yeah.
No, not that show. I was actually thinking of her voice, the sound of her voice. I was thinking, first I thought Jennifer Sisko, and I was like, okay, this is Jennifer. So I started listening. Is this the same actress? And then I could tell that it wasn't her. But then I started to think, is this the voice of the woman that plays Captain Freeman?
Oh, wow. Dawn Lewis? I think Dawn Lewis, right?
Yeah, I felt that a little bit. I was like, whose voice is this? And I didn't actually find out whose voice it is, but the voice reminded me of Captain Freeman, and then also of, initially of Jennifer Sisko. And then for some reason,
oh my God. Okay, I just looked it up who it was. And
yes,
look, I hate to say this, but I think you and I had the same feeling where we thought it sounds like an African-American voice, right? And then and so that's why you thought Jennifer Sisko and who was the next one?
Captain Freeman.
Dawn Lewis. Yeah. And I thought the same. I was trying to kind of picture it, but then when they found the dead body, I think she had like blonde hair or something like that.
Yeah.
Dude, it was Deborah Wilson.
So
my
ears were hearing.
Yes, no, you were. Yeah, you could just kind of hear it. I don't know what it was, but Deborah Wilson of Mad TV, and you can hear it. I don't know if it was in the inflection.
It was so familiar. That's what I was. I've heard this voice before.
Yes, me too.
There was something in the pronunciation that I was like, it's either Jennifer Sisko or the woman who plays Captain Freeman. I was sure of it,
Well, Captain Freeman, Dawn Lewis is a pretty good guess because both of these ladies were comedians in the 90s, very successful shows on TV, so they probably did have similar delivery or similar familiarity to us growing up, hearing their voices over and over and over again, week after week after week for years.
Yeah.
So it's kind of implanted in our brain. And then 25 years later, when we hear it, we're like, I know that voice. Who is this person that I'm trying to pick? Yeah. Wow, that's interesting.
So and also interesting that the woman, it's not the person who we saw as a dead body on screen, that the voice and that actress are two separate people.
Yeah.
So that's another kind of little gem there, a little Easter egg that we kind of uncovered here.
Mm-hmm. And another thing is, I feel like we may have noticed this, or maybe not, but this lady is back in the Star Trek world, Deborah Wilson. She does voices in 2 episodes of Star Trek Prodigy. Wow. So that's pretty cool. A Moral Star Part 2 and Lost and Found Part 1. She played various minors, like Minor 2, Minor 4, Minor 7, doing all different kinds of voices for different characters in Lost and Found Part 1. And again, a minor in A Moral Star Part 2. So it's probably only a matter of time till they bring her back for, some other kind of main role. But right now it looks like they used her for to fill in like all the various voices that you hear when they're going by and they're like, "Oh, save us," or whatever it is that they do. That's really cool to see her back.
That is cool. Deborah Wilson. Shout out to her.
Old school.
And very good as a voice actress in this too, by the way. The familiarity she had when she was talking with people, it felt like she knew Sisko, felt like she knew Bashir, felt like she was calling out
and
everybody on
feel her personality, right? Mm-hmm. When you're listening to, and I think that's the whole point of this episode, is that you never actually saw her, you never met the character, but you felt like you knew her. You felt like you knew her with the personality, the jokes, her assertiveness, the way she just kind of would take charge and be like, "Nope, sorry, doctor, you're obligated to keep me company." She's faced with death and she just saw her entire crew die, yet there she is, just keeping the conversation going and being positive, being assertive, having fun.
And the other thing she was able to convey in her performance as in the voice was that I bought that she was a captain. Mm-hmm. I bought that she had that captain level experience because of the way she was able to communicate, because of her taking charge of moments, but also being funny, and also, all of the way she had about herself kind of validated the premise that she was a captain. Now, the only thing I did think, though, was when they found out at the end that she was not alive anymore, I did think to myself, wouldn't a quick Google search have fixed that for the crew to find out that she had died 3 years ago?
But then nobody would know that she had died. I mean, they would be the one to report that theoretically, I don't know, or maybe somebody found it because 3 years had passed. So yeah, it's possible. But God, they were gone for 8 years. That's an insane mission. They send you out on a mission for 8 years. I mean, so at least it's cool that they had a lot to talk about. That's why Sisko was like, and then there was the Dominion War. She's like, "Who's the Dominion? Oh, they're out in the Gamma Quadrant. What? Why the Gamma? Oh, because of the wormhole. What wormhole? Deep Space Nine. What's Deep Space Nine?" It's like, oh my God, how long have you been gone?
Yeah, I did like that. Very good moments. And this is another thing I wanted to say, really. I know we're coming close to the end, but I do want to say that this episode brings out, because everybody revealed kind of personal thoughts and feelings, I thought I really enjoyed the toast that O'Brien gave at the end. I gave him an A+.
Yeah.
Because of some of the words that he used. But, one of the things he says was, "One day someone will be missing from this circle."
That was the line.
And we shouldn't have to mourn alone. And I thought, that's what better reason to have a group of friendship and just be there for each other. For that very reason, it kind of reminded me of the late great Aaron Eisenberg and how we have mourned together because of the circle of friendship that we have. So that hit home the hardest for me.
Yeah, and I've thought about that many times before. And then when O'Brien mentioned it, it definitely hit for me. Is sometimes you have a group of friends and you kind of come to this realization sometimes, that, hey, 50 years from now, or maybe tragically not too far in the future, one of these people is going to die. And then we're all going to kind of start dropping, sometimes I think about that as, say, like Voyager, knock on wood, they haven't had any tragic losses, right? But maybe 40 years from now, you never know, like 3 or 4 might go in 1 year, because once you get older, and then Deep Space Nine, it has been hit by tragedy twice, with Renee and with Aaron, and our little team was hit so hard with Aaron. And it just, every once in a while you do stop and think about these things when you have like a tight knit group here or a team there or something like that. You are aware that, and sometimes it happens way sooner than what obviously anybody would expect. But yeah, it was a really good line. I put that was the last thing I put in my notes too.
Yeah, I thought it was A+. And even he gave that same kind of speech earlier. That was a repeat of it. He was talking alone in the bed with Lisa. And in that conversation, when he was opening up to her, he says, sometimes I just think, keep your head down. They may not be here tomorrow. Don't get too close. So at first he says, you're in a war, keep your head down. Don't get too close to people. They might be gone. And through the conversations he has with her, he reverses that same sentiment. And it's like, we need to be close to people because they might be gone, right? And I thought that was a great evolution as far as, we talk about what do you learn? What does a character learn? How does a character grow from whatever experience that the episode's watching? We've kind of gotten into that subject matter before, but here I feel like that's one of the biggest growths. It's like, instead of not connecting with people because you're afraid of when you lose them that, you'll be attached to something, you will have lost something. Instead, connect with people. That way, when you do lose something, there will be this network of people that can help you, mourn and deal with that loss.
Yeah. And really every single passing day that we don't do that, we're tempting fate. Every day that we get older and every day that passes, we don't know when these things might happen, but we know we're getting closer to it. And the chances every day are getting a little bit higher and a little bit higher. It's like you're rolling the dice, it's like every time the chances are getting higher. And so that's definitely a great reminder there. I do want to mention that since you brought up Chief O'Brien in bed talking to Lisa Cusack, that is exactly what my nitpick is. So the timing is impeccable, number one. It is impeccable, damn it, Mr. Worf. Okay. And it goes a little something like this. When Chief O'Brien is talking to Lisa, he's in his bunk bed thing. There's no ladder leading to it. How the heck is he supposed to get up there? There's no ladders. There's no stairs. There's no rope. Look at it again. There's nothing. What the hell? What is he transporting? Give me a break. Give the guy a ladder.
He got beamed up to the top bunk.
I was like, well, how does he? Because he was at the top bunk. He was up there and anyway, whatever.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say, where's his wife? How could he sleeping in a bunk bed? What the hell are you doing, man? Don't you have a wife and kid at home?
She's never around. That's why she gets all the names.
Yeah. I also wanted to say that the beautiful relationship between Odo and Quark, the Odo kind of disguised in the cargo bay as, and then overhearing all of this personal conversation that Quark was saying, hey man, this dude owes me, man. I hooked this guy up with the love of his life and he's on my ass just with a microscope. Odo really, Odo really showed a lot of growth in that moment too. It felt like he was like, you know what, maybe I am being such, the guy comes in there, he's talking about the backs on stools, and I'm like, dude, this guy's worse than the health department.
Odo. Yeah. The health department.
Yeah, when I had a restaurant, the health department comes in there and they start just like going through everything, looking at everything, and you're like, seriously? You got to check to see if the ice cubes are cold enough.
I was just going to mention the ice cube. They love to pick on the ice. Yeah, the ice is their favorite nitpick.
Yeah, all ice, and I'm like, seriously, temperature of everything. This got to be hotter. This got to be colder. And then like looking at the trim on the floor, they go in there and it's like, oh God, I'm scared right now because they're going to find something. Mm-hmm. And that's what Odo felt like to me, with the regulation and the rules and the code and the backs of things, and somebody could get vertigo. But I did like the fact vertigo. I was seriously.
I half expected that Quark knew that Odo was there listening in and was doing that whole thing on purpose to appeal to Odo. I expected Quark to be like, now watch this kind of thing to Jake, be like, watch, just see what happens. But no, he didn't know. They kept it innocent. They kept it, where it wasn't Quark getting one over on Odo. It was Odo just getting a little bit of growth and saying, all right, you can have one, Quark.
Yeah, just this one. But that would have been a great twist, though, if there was if Jake was reading off a script. Yeah, right. The Quark had prepared his lines.
Yeah, and then Quark goes, and that's how you write a good villain, or whatever, or whatever it is. And then Jake's like, that's pretty good. No writing, just up here.
No writing. Yeah.
So
that would have been a good.
We're about to go to our free for all, everybody. But before we do that, we want to give a very special thanks and shout out to Homer Frizzell out in Walter Koenig's former apartment building in New York, Dr. Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackmon-Tom, Carmen, a.k.a. Skillet, Tim Baum, a.k.a. Grandpa One, TJ, Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill, Victor, Arucan, Titus Mohler, Darlena Marie, John Mann, Dr. Mohamed Noor, Tierney C, Dieckmann, Rex A, Wood, Anil O, Polat, Anna Post, Dr. Frank Soboczenski, Patrick David Lindsley, Joe Balsarotti, and of course, everybody knows Dr. Susan V. Gruner, the Bug Lady. We'll be right back on the seventh rule. Stick around. We've got the free for all next. See you then.
And we're back. Welcome back to the seventh rule with host Ryan T. Husk, star Cirroc Lofton, and an amazing panel cast of associate producers. Eve England out in Well to Co. Gold do Scott, Anna Post, and I can't believe it's Anne Marie. We have Rex Wood representing Trekkers Against Bullying. We're all really against bullying, right? And we have Sue Gruner, the Bug Lady, not to be confused with the Bag Lady. Anil Polat and Apartment Homer Frizzell.
Hello, I'm Apartment.
The board queen. And ladies and gentlemen, the wonderful, the awesome Melissa Longo. And I am TJ Jackson-Bey.
Also wonderful and awesome.
Hailed you.
Yes. Very much.
Yes.
Wow, fun. All right, well, we've got a lot to go over, everybody. First of all, first things first, Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
IMDb for this one. I like this episode. I'm going to say it was an 8. 8, straight 8.
Does anybody have any guesses to throw out that doesn't already know what the people of IMDb ranked it overall?
I'll go with 7.6.
Ooh.
Did you already mention that Sci-Fi Sisters rated this one of their top 10 Deep Space Nine favorite episodes?
No. Wow. That's something to discuss. Anil, does that change your answer at all?
Well, IMDb, I guess because there wasn't a ton of action. So I would say IMDb usually rates it a little bit lower, but I think it's a great episode. So IMDb always gets it too low, I think.
Right. Well, it's averaged out. Yeah. Anybody else?
7-1.
I tended it.
Whoa. I tended too. That's slam that 10.
Because of the B story.
I mean, if it's me, I'm going to call it 25. But
Let's be fair, it's a 10, but
it's not high enough.
7-4.
It is a 7-4.
Oh, really?
Wow.
I don't know.
Yeah, you got it.
Very nice.
Nice. But also, really, only a 7-4?
Yeah, that's not fair.
25 for this episode.
10. So the other thing is non-appearance mentions. We kind of went over this a little bit, but did you guys catch the non-appearance mention in this episode?
Oh,
it's a pretty big one.
Well, besides that one. It was Shakar again. It's always Shakar again. This guy's dominating.
Namhor.
Namhor. That's his nickname, the Namhor. Okay, but Scott, you brought it up. A big Nam. Do you guys consider this entire episode a Nam for Lisa Cusack, even though we saw her at the end?
Well, did we see her? We saw her.
We didn't see her. Yeah. There was no actress.
We saw her corpse, her skeleton,
we saw a representation,
but that's not.
That was her.
Wait,
I wish they would have put a picture up of her or something, like her service picture, like next to her casket or something.
I wish they had done that at the service. Had her picture. I was actually going to lead in saying this was the greatest non-appearance mention
of all time, right? Ever.
Yeah. Not a Nam.
Ooh, get him, Homer.
Oh, get him, Homer.
Was going to have that.
Why not, Homer?
We do see Lisa Cusack, despite the fact that there isn't an actress there. And so it's an appearance. So it can't be a non-appearance.
And there was an actor that did work this episode with voiceover too. So if we're counting it, that they should, even though they weren't there.
But it's worthy of discussion, perhaps in the live chat. There can be spirited typing.
All right.
This is a computer episode or a Mac
typing.
Was it a non-appearance?
I subverted.
Or word to text.
Or in the comments below.
I suppose get audio.
Yeah, in the comments below. Perfect.
Let's start a Facebook fight. There's plenty of those going on.
There's never enough. Never enough drama on social media.
So Homer, if it was a grave site that they found and you never actually saw a corpse at all, would you still consider it an appearance?
It would be a Nam because we don't see the person or the
mummified.
It would be a Nam
of the body.
Yeah. Right.
What about if they just found like a hand?
But various states of decomposition. So there's probably a limit at some point.
Yeah, but she was a skeleton. So
see, there we go. We're on that slope.
I think what Homer's trying to say is, where do you draw the line then? If we see her shoe, is it an appearance? If we just see a hand, a necklace?
Did we see the which are the used?
Exactly.
Is it an appearance mention when the soul has left the body?
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like,
to be discussed.
Well, it's not actually.
I mean, even the Klingons say that the body
it had an appearance.
Even the Klingons say that the body is just a dead dust. Does it make a sound?
Yes.
In a cave.
You could say that Keiko has left her soul on Deep Space Nine for all of her non-appearance mentions, even if we don't see her. So I don't know. The soul, the Pa is a tough one.
Hold on.
Anyway, I think we're boring Sue and Anil and Anna. So.
I don't know.
we got him. Melissa Longo, you just got back from acting on a set and doing your thing. Have you seen this episode recently? And if so, what'd you think?
I haven't seen it recently. And I was
Eve England out in
wow. Ryan T. Husk. No, I haven't seen it recently, but I was scouring IMDb to refresh my memory. But I do know every time I've seen this episode, it moves me to tears every single time, especially the end and O'Brien's speech and how it kind of foreshadows the next episode and what's to come. And I love Lisa Cusack and everything that she did with her voice. Her voice is incredible. And she felt like part of the crew to me, and it was a real loss when they said goodbye. And so it was nicely done. I even liked the B story but that's because I'm Team Kira and Odo. But so good job all the way around. I really like this episode.
The B story also had some fun Quark and Jake goodies that we loved as well.
Yes. Oh, and this episode is responsible for me learning what the word nefarious means when I was
good word.
A younger person.
Sheltered from that word.
I had been sheltered from that word up until I saw this episode. I was like, what does that mean? So anyway.
Cool shirt, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
That is, you can find that at walkingartmadebymelissa.com. She's got a lot of fun Star Trek
find
things.
This too.
Oh, wait, there it is. Hang on, I'm going to spotlight you for just a second. There it is. Nice. Well, Eve England, sometimes out in Wales, sometimes in Mexico, whatever. How are you? Do you remember this episode?
I literally just watched it because I couldn't actually remember it that well. So I just watched it just now. And I have to agree with what Melissa said. It was just so much more emotional than I was expecting. And yeah, the two speeches at the end when they were in the wake was just, I in tears actually. And I wasn't expecting that by watching it. So yeah, it had so much. And I just like the bit at the end where Dax was trying to explain to Worf what a wake was, and he's like, "Oh, it's almost Klingon," and I was like, "That was quite." The Irish analogy, so I thought that was quite funny. But yeah, great. And one thing I did remember reading the companion before I came on holiday is when they were auditioning for Lisa Cusack's role, they just had the voices, so they didn't see any of the actors who were auditioning for the role. They just did it purely on the voice, just so that they knew that you'd get that emotional response from the voice. So I thought that was quite interesting as well.
So
wow, that's really cool.
Also, on the set too, right? Like nobody saw her, so that they could actually act with just a disembodied voice.
I love that.
Yeah. Even now, no one still has seen her.
Yes, we don't know what she looks like.
Kind of.
She's not even on IMDb.
Wasn't looking great. Yeah.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, I know.
She means the character. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, floating around, looks like right next to Earth and Deep Space Nine. No, I'm guessing that's Bajor, but it looks like Earth.
Is it Bajor or is it Bajor?
Sue, you gave this a 10?
Yes. Yes, I tended. Yeah, I loved it. I loved everything about it. And I got something from it that I think is relevant to today. Now with all of this, getting to know each other, sometimes with faces and sometimes not via WhatsApp or the internet or whatever. I am so tired of people saying to me, how can you get to know anybody online, or you don't really know them? Well, this just shows that you can. They all really appreciated her. She meant a lot to them. And I think that's really important that you can. Mm-hmm. They were there for each other. And I loved Miles' speech at the end. He gets a 10 for that too. I thought it was well written. I just loved the whole thing. It was very great. And I cried at the end. And I watched it twice because I was looking for the freaking NAMs that I missed.
Oh my God.
Nice. I love it. Cool.
I do have a nitpick. One nitpick.
Let's hear it.
Why did they research when that ship went missing?
I was wondering about
I thought the same thing. That quick Google search would have fixed that.
Good point.
Alexa was on vacation.
Yeah.
It couldn't get any Wi-Fi out there. It was too far out.
But there's no way Bashir's talking to a woman without a significant other, and he's not like doing a quick Google search.
He's checking her Twitter, seeing what she's
exactly.
like.
Anne-Marie, you sound like a genuine Facebook stalker.
Yeah.
She didn't deny it, y'all.
No, she didn't.
So
Bashir's like, I'm checking her Instagram.
All right. No, he is.
Yeah, totally.
You haven't recorded a log in 3.5 years here.
Well, Goldu Scott, how many times have you watched this episode today?
This is today 0. I watched it last night though. This is one of my favorite episodes. I feel like it goes under everybody's radar. This is I put this in the same spot as Nor the Battle for the Strong and a couple of their episodes like that. It just their episodes, they're so solid. There's a beginning, middle, and end. It is a classic sci-fi story about learning about compassion and communication 100%, particularly with Miles learning, keeping all that locked up from the border wars or the Cardassian wars and admitting that he actually needed help. And you've got from day one, I mean, from the very first scene, you've got Jake learning from Quark learning from Jake, and then learning from, and Jake literally saying, I'm doing a character study right there for these characters in this novel. Mm-hmm. And then you got Odo understanding Quark and letting him slide and do his thing, help me out a little bit, so I'm going to let this one slide, And I just really thought, and then obviously everybody with Cusack and how she somehow out of time still taught everybody a huge lesson on compassion, which is really the rubber's going to hit the road in the next couple episodes for sure with that. And I particularly love the entire story of Miles with him, because he's been talking about the border war since TNG. And all the stuff that he had to deal with that, and then you think he's better, he's over it, and it takes a very courageous person to admit that they need to talk to somebody about something, and for him to come out at the end of that, and just the examples throughout of Ben just like not wanting to talk about Cassidy, and then at the very end he's like, you know what, let's go talk, and she's like, yeah, you cook for me and it'll be good.
Yeah,
the whole thing was driven home. I thought it was really great, a beginning, middle, and end story arc about communication and compassion and understanding each other because you're trying to.
And friendship.
And 100%. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, good point.
Definitely tended. I tended years ago. So it's all
as it should be. Anne-Marie, have you ever had any squabbles with somebody and told them, as long as you cook for me, it'll be cool?
Oh yeah. No, I don't think so. But that's like the beauty of getting to deliver food. I definitely haven't.
It's DiGiorno, not delivery.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you love this episode, right? What'd you think upon this most recent viewing?
obviously the A story is just perfect. And there's some really fun like medical terms scattered in, which I love, like when they talk about hypoxia and how to sort of like combat that on other planets. I think that's always the coolest thing. And you start like getting to think like, yeah, that is maybe how like they could get molecules to work and strengthen your muscles. But so that I love, and it's so compassionate and beautiful. But also the B story is just so cute. I love Woodland Court's friendship so much.
Love hearing doctors talk about the medicine in Star Trek, or scientists talking about the science in medicine, or Sue commenting on the insects in Star Trek, I should say, not medicine.
This one is such a like low-key amazing medicine episode. I'm like, I'll have to come back here for more quiz questions.
Nice, yeah. TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri. How much do you love this episode?
Well, I think I'm gonna have to change my rating from 25 to 125.
Oh,
that's fair.
I love this episode because it is that story that kind of hits you in the chest a little bit every time I watch it. Kind of like I think Gold the Sky compared it to Nor the Battle. I compare it to The Visitor even. It's that type of story for me to watch these relationships form and kind of have to face that heartbreak at the end. Like every time I watch it, like I know how the story ends, and I still am, in this journey, and I still have the feelings. And at the end, I'm still like, no, we got to do something else to save her. Like, gotta get back. Two-shot maneuver. We're going back. We're going back 3 years, and we're going to fix this.
And why couldn't they use that time portal that Molly went through?
Yeah, that was just last episode.
Yeah, like drop the corpse in that time portal and see if she's 8 years younger.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I thought there were just some really, really good points in this episode. I love the Kira Odo story as well, but I especially, just really love the personality that comes through just with the sound of her voice, which is the name of the episode. And I thought it was quite funny when she asked Captain Sisko to order the crew to enjoy talking to her. And, so right off the bat, we see, kind of her sense of humor. I really appreciated the moment when when Cassidy and O'Brien are talking, and she's like, wait, I can hear you guys talking. Like, no, talk to me. Like, So I thought that moment played really great. I thought, kind of from her perspective, it's really touching, although, for her heroes never arrived. She had company, in her last moments where, without this kind of weird time thing kind of happening, she just would have been alone there. With no kind of hope, just talking out into space and thinking that nobody ever heard the sound of her voice. So that just gets me every time. I think this episode of Star Trek doing what Star Trek does best. And while I like the way that kind of some of the new series play with the kind of overarching stories, I feel like with the shorter season format that you don't get this kind of story in a season because they're so focused on the bigger story that you're not going to get a story that just runs into this kind of a dead end. Like, we don't actually save her. It just kind of, that story happened and now it's gone. So I do miss that part of the storytelling in Trek. And I wonder, with the new Strange New Worlds, if we'll see this kind of episode again, since they're not going to be so focused on a big season arc. At least that's the word on the street. We'll see.
That would be awesome, man.
I do wonder, in addition to the nitpick that Sue brought up, she mentioned that she had a sister, and I just really have to wonder if anybody that talked to her went and looked up her sister and said, like, how do you even approach that? How do you go and say, look, I know, your sister passed away 3.5 years ago, but I got a chance to talk to her. Like, how weird is that?
Did they record the logs? Yeah. Were they recorded?
I would assume they probably would.
I would imagine that all,
because that might be something
definitely
nice for her sister to listen to
have. She would love that. So I would love to see, I don't know if it's in a novel somewhere, if somebody ever went and looked up her sister and
it's a good point, though.
Story that happened. That's all I got.
The way that they would probably have to tell her sister is they just kind of message her and say, hey, are you going to the Irish wake? She goes, what Irish wake? Oh, the one for your sister. But
no. Oh, hey, I do have one more thing. So she mentioned that they left for this mission 8 years ago. So I looked up when this episode was, and 8 years before that was, obviously DS9 is 7 seasons, so it wasn't that. It was the best of both worlds on the Next Generation.
Oh my gosh, I was thinking that. I was like, so that should be before Wolf
359? It's right around that time. And then the
it was 8 years prior, right?
Right, that's 8 years ago.
It was
11 then?
11 years prior then, yeah.
Was it 11 years, not 8?
Because it's 8
the 3 years
plus the 3.
Right.
Oh.
So was she even in the right uniform?
Math.
Ooh, Scott getting nitpicky here.
He was in the Next Generation uniform.
Open up a little can.
I think
it was TNG. Were they monster moving without the collar at that point?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah.
Well, they had 2 uniforms.
They did. They had the one with the line around it too, as well.
Yeah, it switched pretty early on.
She was on a specifically science expedition. They might have had him in a different uniform too, depending on their mission.
Yeah, we have seen different crews.
Which also just could have been how they explained it away if somebody was like, you didn't do your research.
Yeah.
Speaking of your research, Tierney, do you have any thoughts on this episode? Cool shirt, by the way.
Thank you, sci-fi sisters from this weekend, handed to me by Miss Timia herself. And I was like, you're giving me a shirt? Oh my God. I love it. And I thought it was very appropriate for this episode. And I was very glad to hear this was one of their top 10, I believe, which is also very appropriate. And to go off a couple of the nitpicks, and I'm really glad to hear, again, that everybody's got similar opinions on just how great this episode is. I would think one of the first things they would do with this happening is research the ship, unless this might have been some sort of classified mission. As you said, 8 years prior to the episode, plus the 3 have to do a little looking. I didn't even get that far in my thinking that to look into that. So could be something along those lines to play it away. But either way, good concept for a story, and similar to the Voyager episode where they found the Romulan captain who was back in time. I can't remember the name of the episode now, but very sad situation there too. They couldn't do anything. And the other thing with our appearance mention, I don't know what you call it at this point. Get your spirit fingers going in the chats. But I really wish that Deborah Wilson had gotten some recognition as a photo and a uniform at the Irish wake. Just at the end, just something. I know in the companion it was described as she was supposed to be a 50-something Caucasian female, and they just had all these people come in and read, and nobody saw anyone, just the disembodied voice, which was wonderful. I love that for directing until the end.
Yeah.
But she should have gotten that. She really should have gotten that. And I know that She's done decently well throughout her career, but at that time, she really should have gotten that representation, just period. She's really great, and her voice is wonderful. And apparently she, I think is either Las Vegas or The Experience or possibly online, she did have a little bit of a Star Trek thing where she tells you to it must be The Experience, to buckle up and keep your arms inside and don't get limbs cut off, which is kind of funny. But she was phenomenal. But I love this episode, and I had trouble with my notes because it pulls you in many, many different directions. It's another that will remind you why we love Trek, why we do this, because it's not the fast-paced, super entertaining, fun, you remember it and you tell your friends, oh, go watch this episode of Star Trek, it'll get you into it. It's the characters are established, the story is established, it pulls at you and reminds you why you love it, why everyone's cool.
I was actually thinking that this would be a good episode to introduce somebody to Star Trek because it's a really simple kind of concept. Somebody that's not into like the whole shoot 'em up kind of stuff, but somebody that just kind of wants to see a good story. And then the twist at the end, when they get affected emotionally, it might hit a switch and they go, oh, I see. Okay. This isn't just a sci-fi thing, but I don't know. That's
from an outside perspective. See, I guess I take it from a little bit different, knowing the lore so well on all the different levels of what Bashir is going through. I mean, it's been another episode in a row where his character, and I'm not sure, but maybe Sid just in real life with everything going on, seems so tired and just worn out. And then you've got O'Brien. He's still talking about the border war, and you know that from TNG. You've got Sisko with Cassidy and the relationship, and they're struggling. Yeah. And I mean, I wouldn't want to be on a carrier with my husband. No way in hell. That is just, it's separate's fine. It's not that you couldn't do it, but that is, your relationship doesn't work that way. So from an inside Star Trek perspective, this is personal. I mean, listening to everybody, and I'm just like, I cry at this every time. And the very first time as an adult, rewatching this, or teenager or adult, hey, you have a brain working besides being a kid. You watch this and I'm thinking, no, save her. There's something's going to happen. Something at the end is going to happen. O'Brien's going to find some engineering thing. Bashir's going to find some time thing where they reversed complete horrid geriatric aging on Deanna. They're going to just switch it and she's fine. She's going to join the crew. Something's going to work. Every time I watch this, I think that, something will change and will save her. You can't help it with this one. It is very emotional, and the B story is great. It's uplifting along with it. It's just, I think, actually, I know Scott had said that it's underrated. At least on IMDb, it is, and it needs a lot more recognition. It should be up there more with knowledge. It's a really lovely episode and needs some more recognition. Definitely more recognition.
Speaking of needing more recognition, Rex A. Wood is here, everybody. Welcome back, Rex. We missed you. Do you remember this episode? Have you seen it recently? I know you were partying in Chicago recently. Have you seen this?
Absolutely, I have. And recently, and also, of course, in the past, and definitely have to give it the same award that TJ did. It's a huge number. It's got so much going on in it, so many different things going on. It just starting out at the beginning, I laugh about where they're talking about the stools, not having the backs on them, and that Odo's decided that this is a code violation, and just spinning everybody, just the whole thing is pretty funny at that point. And then just all the way through it where Quark takes, of course, the credit for getting Odo and Kira together, and it's all me, and I held his hand and I did all this stuff when she was dating somebody else. There's such great stuff there. And then you start moving into the rest of it. What I really like is where Bashir is sitting there doing other things, and and he isn't paying any attention to her when she's talking. Okay. And so she all of a sudden goes into that monster voice, I have written, that thing. And he all of a sudden starts paying attention. Right. And he's like, oh my God, something's attacked her. And then she was able to say no, but she brought out, you're not listening to me. Okay. You're doing something else, and he had to come back and actually admit, I wasn't listening to you that whole time. I was doing my work. So it kind of goes to how we all kind of get when we forget to listen. We get involved in something that is our own lives, and we're doing something, and somebody is talking to us about something that's very, very important, and we forget to listen. Going back to Aaron, the whole listen to everything. Absolutely. Sometimes we forget when we're busy and we're kind of sucked into our own lives, that we don't pay attention to things out there. So that's one of the big lessons that I think you kind of get from that part of it. And then of course it's very sad at the end because there isn't anything we can do at that point. But that's Star Trek. Sometimes Star Trek hits that reality. Not everything is always perfect. Not everything ends perfect, right?
Right.
So that's exactly it in this episode. So I like it so much because it just covers so many different things. And then at the end, when Odo is talking about letting Quark get away with something, he was more interested in spending that night with Kira than he cared about that Quark was getting away with something totally illegal. So just the whole episode was laid out so well. So very good episode. Absolutely.
Nice. Very good. Anna Post, who's still hanging out in the Chicago area. She's still hanging on to the fun of the convention. Do you remember this episode? Have you seen it recently?
I did. I went back and rewatched it. Let me know if audio is not working because I've been having trouble.
We hear you.
Great. So I really love how introspective and contemplative this episode is. And it almost reminds me of like The Cage and how it got flack for being too intellectual and was really like thought-provoking. And this is sort of harkening back to that type of episode. I mean, I love the B story with Quark and Odo and Kira and Jake. I think it's a very fun sort of comic relief to the seriousness of the episode. But it still shows interconnections and relationships and digging deep. And I think this episode is especially poignant nowadays when we've all lived through a couple years of really maybe only connecting online or hearing people's voices and how online therapy sessions have become more popular because sometimes it is so much easier to talk to somebody who you're not as familiar with, who is a disembodied voice, who doesn't know you as well as your intimate family, your intimate friends. And it's easier to unload onto that one person who doesn't have judgments or maybe even a mental picture of who you are. And it is almost easier to bond with those people kind of in the way that I've found so many Star Trek people since the pandemic, and starting with the Discords and the online chats and not necessarily seeing people, but hearing their voices in a way that connects you to something that you wouldn't have thought possible. And you get that really, really strong feeling where then you do on, however many days it was of talking to someone, then you feel the need to really have that funeral and that wake to give them the send off that they deserve instead of just sending a notification to Starfleet and their family. And you feel like you've really gotten to know someone just with that internal dialogue. So I really liked that about this one, to the point I do think it is an appearance because you have no visual and you can only listen to this episode on audio. If you have a visual impairment, then the person's just as much of an actor as anyone else.
Totally. In your face, Homer.
Yes.
Sorry.
I still kind of agree with you, Homer, though. I'm not sure.
I mean, I get it, but
No, that actually agrees with Homer.
That does agree with Homer.
Not exactly.
Oh.
Okay, well, in your face, Homer.
Okay.
Well, no, I don't accept that either.
Homer
But
does
that's
our reality
okay.
for his own.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of no judgment, Anil O. Polat never judges anybody. He respects everybody equally and honors them. How are you today? Cool. Oh, you've got to show everybody your shirt. This is a first time on our show. This
awesome.
is you can find it at abyssiniankiosk.com. That's Cirroc's sister that makes these awesome designs. Thanks, Anil. What do you think of this episode if you've seen it recently?
Yeah, I like it. It hits the sweet spot that Star Trek does the best at, which is it's basically a theater play, right? Like you could do it as a play. And when you think back, the best episodes, Duet, In the Pale Moonlight, The Visitor, like these are all episodes that could be done on stage. And I think kind of what TJ was saying earlier, a lot of the new Star Trek kind of doesn't feel like that. There, you know, it feels more like you're watching a movie. And so I, you know, when you have a longer season, you can kind of dive into more of these character type episodes. But I think some of the best episodes are those. As fans, we like those episodes, you know. So great episode, great acting. It could go terribly wrong, right? Like if the voice didn't fit, you know, if you didn't believe people that were talking to a disembodied voice, but everything just clicks really well because people are acting really well and the story's great.
Yeah. Who else was that TJ that you were mentioning that these kinds of episodes we don't get these kinds of episodes in these 10 episode or 13 episode seasons. We wouldn't get this episode. We wouldn't get The Visitor. We wouldn't get Far Beyond the Stars. We wouldn't get Duet. I don't think we'd get these kinds of episodes if this was a 10 episode season or 12 or 13. But there is somebody that always keeps his ears open and always takes on all comers whenever he has an unpopular opinion. His name is Homer Frizzell, and he's ready.
I'm not necessarily a contrarian, but I do have an opinion about.
No, you're not.
Some things.
I don't know.
So I have 2 or 3 things about this episode. I'm going to try to hit things that we haven't talked about yet. So first off, I have to wonder about pads. And so Jake is listening to the wisdom that Quark is putting down, and he touches like 3 or 4 buttons. And so I wonder, what did those buttons do? Was it, even if it's words, those 3 or 4 buttons, it can't be 1 button per word. So I'm just curious, Cirroc, for your acting of that scene, what were you thinking?
The first button was sending a request to invest in those crystals because I know the market's going up. No. And the second button was to delete my phone numbers connected to all of these countries I'm having with Quark. So there was no evidence
still exists.
leading back to me.
I was curious.
No, I was curious about some of the pad stuff too myself, because there was a point where Sisko brought out like 3 pads when he was having a conversation, and he had all like a whole table full of pads. One he was spinning around,
moving around, right?
Yeah. So I was thinking about the pads too, but not in the same kind of way. But please continue, Homer.
Well, speaking of that spinning the pad, I think he realized that he had it upside down. And so then he was like, I'm just going to play with it while I'm listening to this person. So I think Avery just went with it. Yeah. But okay, so the final thing I have is, what if there wasn't that 3-year difference? Did it need that necessarily? I think all of the lessons would have been learned. They would have still had it. It's just for the audience, it would have felt more like a failure of the crew of the Reliant. Even though they didn't save her, they could have almost saved her, and maybe we weren't ready to handle failure. But I think it would have been as powerful, or perhaps more powerful, and it was certainly solved all of the Google search questions that were raised.
Yeah,
that's a good point. I don't know. I think that
I can't handle it.
I think that
not in that in next episode. No way.
Yeah, but I think that like we're used to like if Starfleet just arrives just barely too late, then they still revive them or they figure something out. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they had to give that separation to where we just know that entire thing was futile. Like there had
to be a finality of
but it wasn't futile because of all of the stuff that each of them got out of the interaction in the relationship. But it's still, because every time I watch this episode, I go into it thinking, well, how can they save her? They've got to save her. But I like that they don't, because that's the reality of life. You can't close your eyes and say, okay, now a miracle is going to happen, because it doesn't.
Maybe one of these watches they will.
I think too, it's so hard wondering what she thought when she died, knowing that they never showed up. Like her last thoughts were probably how they didn't make it. And like we have all of their thoughts, but like I'm always stuck with like what was she thinking in that?
Yeah.
Oh, they actually kidnapped her, put her soul in somebody else's body, and now she's a minor.
I only think like she was thinking, where are my heroes?
Or maybe she was just lost consciousness before that thought crossed her mind, because the hypoxia set in.
And you know
she's too strong for that.
You know she's just sitting there every second saying, just stay alive one more minute, stay conscious. They're almost here. They're just if I just stay, hang on for another minute. Yeah, that's a good point, Anna.
I imagine not only her being rescued. I imagine after talking to them for 5 days that she was actually quite eager to meet him.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Except for Bashir. But yeah,
I would say or go like that awkward dinner with Sisko and Cassidy.
To Bashir's credit, and tagging on to what Rex brought out, to his credit, I think, he probably, if it was me or something, I probably would have tried to convince her and even myself that I actually was listening. To his credit, he immediately says, you know what? I was not listening. I'm sorry. That's wrong of me. I'm going to give you my full attention now. Mm-hmm. And then he did it. He did. and I'm not, saying this to paint myself good or bad, but I think, my tendency would probably be to even say that and still try to like do some, other things, working. Like to try to get something done.
I can do this.
I feel bad about that. Like I need to. So Rex, that lesson is for me when I watch this episode. That I should not have that tendency.
For a lot of us.
I also forgot to mention, how fun is it that commercial break ends right when she like says she's about to get eaten. So like at the commercial break, everyone thinks that was like actual action.
Like, oh no.
So funny.
Well, we're just about out of time, everybody here, but Cirroc, Lofton, do you have any final thoughts before we go? This has been a really good episode and discussion.
Love the discussion. Couple of things that I forgot to mention. One, I did think it was a trap. A part of me thought, oh, this is a trap. Like this is some alien using this as a ruse to come over here and get them to show up.
That was a lot of Star Trek.
That was
exactly.
I also thought that this woman was very selfless. I thought that she could have easily have been talking about herself and what she, her problems, but she went into more of each character, which was a great tool for the writers to kind of give us an insight on what the characters were thinking. But I also thought that she was a selfless person and really showed compassion towards on the other side, right? Towards their characters, even though she never met them. The other thought I crossed my mind was when I was a kid, we used to do a thing called pen pals. And that's when back in the day, we used to write letters. Used to write a letter to somebody that you didn't know and never saw before.
Oh my
this
God.
was before the internet.
Oh my God, I thought you had like an early computer game because you said game. It's like pen pals, what's that?
No, pen pals. That was something from my generation and before. I'm sure.
I had one. I actually met in person finally from Australia.
Me too.
Right.
So I missed that too. I missed that.
Yeah.
So
I thought the same about pen pals. Yeah. That
start writing to each other. There we go.
Right. So, but what I mean, I brought it up to say that you can feel connected to somebody you've never seen before. And then that's how the whole pen pal kind of thing worked for me. Quickly, I thought Paris, you know, she said, why did you want to do Paris for their celebration? I thought that was, I wanted to mention the Paris. I like the Odo wanting to go to Paris. And really quickly, the last thought I have is when Quark finally makes the deal, I thought that it was almost an opportunity for Jake to drop his old business partner Nog and go into business with Quark. And then instead of the known fate consortium, we could have the
fighting words.
The Quark J
back in business.
Whoa, Jay.
I was like, wait a minute. This guy gets his hands on some pretty good merchandise. My self-sealing stem bolts are these really valuable crystals.
Time crystals.
But,
moving up.
He wouldn't let Jake touch him. He smacked Jake's hand.
Yeah.
You know what Nog would probably think of that?
Yeah.
I wonder.
You did what?
So I think everybody here right now is thinking, how do we start a seventh rule pen pal situation going on? So we'll have that figured out. Everybody's going to have some pen pals.
The live chat?
That is the live chat.
Exactly.
We'll see you next week, everybody. No, you're probably right.
So now pen
social
pals,
media.
we got to break it
pen
down
pal
just
is
like
actually
NAM.
writing.
So you use a pen and you're writing it. Yeah. So it is to a pal.
Stamp.
The pal part is less important than the pen part.
The pen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
it's different.
just to clear it up.
Yeah.
I used to have those Parmesan pieces of paper that you folded up and you just sent them.
You put it in an envelope and you lick the envelope and you put
a snail mail
on it. Took it to the mail.
Yeah. You didn't even need an envelope. It was a thing that folded up and then you put that in the mail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You folded it the right way. You could like seal it and stamp it and let it go.
I used to send drawings to this guy, and his were so much better than mine. Yeah.
So everybody at home in the comments below, just let us know if you have any fun ideas about pen pals. Like the live chat is A+. You're right, Anne Marie. But you know, if you want to write something out, it's good practice. If you ever try writing stuff nowadays, you'll realize like we're losing it. I'm used to typing. I can barely even know what I'm doing. Yeah. Anyway, everybody at home, thank you for joining us. Also, thank you for joining us, Anil, Eve, Melissa, Sue, Rex, TJ, Anne Marie, Homer, Tierney, Anna, and the evil one, Goldu Scott. Thank you all. We will see you very soon. And until next time, got it, Rex. Always remember the seventh rule.